Okay, so do you want to introduce yourself really quick?
Hi, I'm Martha Keifenheim. I am a pottery artist and a visual artist, and I've also been an artist educator and an arts organization administrator. I live in East Grand Forks, Minnesota, and I recently retired from paid work as a high school art teacher, and now I'm enjoying retirement, but it's a time for me to volunteer with my favorite organization, Muddy Waters Clay Center, and that's become almost a full-time job. So,
Awesome. I
yeah.
actually interviewed Puriel Berg, and
Oh,
so
sure,
yeah, she
sure.
was talking about Muddy Waters. So that's awesome.
Great.
So you went to UND, right, for art?
I did. Yeah, I did. I went to UND. I went to school on the 10-year plan. I graduated from high school in 1972, and at that time, it didn't cost a whole lot to go to school, so I could work and earn what I needed for tuition and room and board. So I took a long time to go to school, and I graduated in 1983. I did a number of things in between. Of course, I worked a variety of jobs and lived in a number of places and traveled. I even ran a little sandwich shop here in Grand Forks for a whole year.
Oh
And
wow,
yeah, yeah. So it was fun. It was fun. UND was good to me.
that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yeah, so I guess talking more about your art, like you said you're a painter, ceramicist.
yeah.
What kind of themes in subject matter do you have any like solid ones, or does it change quite a bit or
It it varies by what the supply is. Obviously, pottery. I tend to do functional things, but then I like to paint on them a little bit, but not terribly ornamentally. It's more learning how supplies work. And I think even my painting continues to be like that. I respond to nature and colors and shapes just like a little kid would, I think.
Mm,
In that would be how I would describe my work. Yeah.
nice. So with the pandemic, I guess you retired this year or previous
I
year?
re- well, I retired actually in August. So I
Okay.
was involved in teaching high school art last spring and learned how to do some things online and learned how to build, you know, supply kits that students could pick up and take with them. In a perfect world, things were, kind of strange because you could imagine how things might go, but then the reality of them at their home, how they were able to work, that was a learning curve. I guess I'm glad I'm not doing it anymore. I really have great respect for the ones who still keep doing it. I think I was just getting a little old and jaded, to be able to pull that off. But I love the students, and the students and I got along great. So I think it was a good experience. I really enjoyed teaching art because it helps an artist put what they're on about down to some basic skills, basic language, basic techniques. And I think all artists need that, as well. And sometimes I think as an adult artist, I was getting lost in some of that. So I really liked working with the kids. I thought it was good for me. And I think they appreciated the love of the art that I brought for them. I really do respond and get lost in that world when I'm working, and they could see that. So,
Mm,
so, so they were happy that I was a real artist. They would say, which was
yeah.
funny. But then they would wonder if I was in a museum, and then I'd have to laugh and show them my gray hair and say, "Well, maybe when I'm dead, maybe I'll be in a museum when I'm dead." Kids are
That's
great.
awesome though. Yeah, I've definitely had art teachers that really loved what they do and it makes a difference. So
It
that's
does.
awesome.
Yeah, it's probably that way with every subject, I think.
Yeah, yeah. If you have
Yeah.
someone that really like cares about what they're doing, it's a lot
Yep.
better.
Yep.
So I guess I've been kind of asking questions about North Dakota too, just because the North Dakota Atlas, I mean, it's a big part of the project as well. And you live in East Grand Forks, but you spent some
Exactly.
time
Yeah.
working in North Dakota. So like I guess the environment's kind of the same, like kind of not super populated and the flat land and
Yeah.
anything about that like comes through in your work at all?
I think so. I think that the lines and the colors and shapes are very simplistic, and that comes from the environment here. I don't know if like, and when I would go away and live in a mountainous place, or I lived in California for a couple of years, came back, I really liked the flatland. There's something about looking out over a long expanse that feels like you reset something inside yourself. I don't know if that makes sense, but I've
Yeah.
talked to other people around here and they kind of get that too. It's not that I feel the mountains or trees are invading my space. I wouldn't ever go there because I love those places. But there is something about the peacefulness of the prairie, and yet it's super powerful. You have to really pay attention. The wind probably is what does that. But I think that the environment is awesome. I came to that though just because I had to. I mean, I moved to the prairie when I was 9 years old from Northern California, and there were no trees then. It was very barren, and I didn't have clothes for winter or any. It was we were kind of poor. We drove an old car that didn't have a heater. So but you find yourself, still as a kid, you just love your environment, you love your family, and I think that's why I love that landscape so much because it reminds me of that time. But of course, now there's lots more trees, and we drive everywhere. We would only drive to Grand Forks twice a year, so you know, it's it's
Did
a
you live on a farm or in a smaller
yep,
town?
yep,
Okay.
real small farm out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah,
Oh, nice.
yeah. First one on the bus and last one off the bus.
Oh
So I was on
no.
the bus for a couple hours a day every day. So
Oh gosh, I guess lots of time to reflect and look out the
right,
window and all that.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess being from like out of town a little bit, I've found with these interviews there's like little like towns that have interesting art stuff. Like I think someone was telling me about Judd, North Dakota has like a bunch of murals. Do you know any places like that? I'm always curious if there's something.
Mm, I can't think of art necessarily. Being I was out in the country, though, I could tell you about Indian burial mounds and even like old potato warehouses that were left, or old farmhouses that were left, and old schoolhouses that were left. And so we dug through all that. We were all over that stuff. Our friends that lived in the country, we would hike for miles and go exploring and
Or
yeah, do that kind of thing. So I think maybe more of an environmental perspective than an art perspective, but what people lived here before and what they did before. And like I said, we were really poor. We had ice storms where the power would be out for 2 weeks, and we'd have to all huddle together at someone else's farmhouse because they had a wood burner in the stove in the basement, whereas all of us had oil and electricity, and there wasn't enough of that around. So I have those memories, and it's more that than art necessarily, I think, although those early experiences of love and passion, I think kind of fuel
yeah,
understanding arts too. So I think that's more what I think about. There were always like murals at the golf course, or um, some murals in the high school, um, and there were art contests, and I was exposed to a lot of that. But I wouldn't say that it affected me a lot
oh,
necessarily.
nice. Yeah, it's always fun to hear about because um we had like a little farm outside of town. My family did, so we were always exploring those abandoned barns and
Yeah,
abandoned houses, and that's always a lot of fun.
yeah.
Um, so let me see here. I have everything's a little out of order in my sheet. Looking forward, I know there will never be like a post-COVID world, but after COVID, there are we've had like kind of shift maybe to online.
Yeah.
I've kind of wanted to bring that up with everyone I talk to. Like, do you feel any pressure to share your art online, with not having that contact with people as often, or is that kind of
Yeah, I do think about that. I don't think about it so much for myself because I've never really been much to sell or promote my own art. It's
mm,
more of something I do for myself, I guess. I might change that. I don't want to keep that door shut. But when you mentioned being more online, it and then I mentioned before, trying to help the kids learn, stuff from when they're trapped at home. not trapped at home, but from at home, trying to have enough supplies and good instructions so they can work from home. With my association with Muddy Waters, I think that selling online is definitely something we have to put in our programs. And being it's all a volunteer organization, that's a struggle because people generally like to do the same things they've done before. So um,
Yeah.
I guess, as much as I like to think that all this time alone and at home has helped us be more focused on what's important to us, and organizations certainly get that opportunity as well as artists to focus on what's happening, what they can refine about what they already know. But that moving into online sales is hard for our group at Muddy Waters anyway. So that's what I'm probably going to try to focus on, that, just getting people to take pictures of their work even, so more of that, but I'm speaking now more of as an art administrator, where I'm trying to encourage them
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
something. Um, it'll be interesting because they have like gallery shows online. Like our student show this year is going to be online, so it's
Yeah.
always interesting to think how if that'll stick around. Because it does have benefits, I guess, but hopefully it'll
Yeah,
all.
there's some challenges. There's some challenges. I think photographs of work have a different look than the actual work. So that right
Definitely.
away, that's an issue. I think um, pottery maybe isn't as much so as some of the visual arts. It's just because of the light. The light, when you see something in person, the light is reflecting off of it, but when you look at it online, the light is coming through it. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's a different piece of work in a way.